What's up, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Automatic Patient Podcast. I am your co-host today. With me, Dr. Dan Nelson. What's up, dog? How you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm excited. This is we're gonna get into some cool stuff today. I'm pumped.
Yes, we're going to be talking a lot of finances within the practice, cost per procedure. Years ago, I did this for the dental lab when I managed my dad's dental lab. And years ago, when I got curious about all this business side of dentistry, I asked my dad, I said, "Hey, how much money do we make per crown?" And he's like, "I don't know, maybe like $50." And I scratched my head. I was confused. And I'm like, "Did you just say, I don't know, maybe like when you're talking about like cost per procedure?" He's like, "Yeah, I really don't know." So like it took me maybe a few weeks to get all of our procedures down or our services put together and the costs and everything. And we did a financial analysis and found that we were losing on some crowns with certain clients. And I'm like, holy smokes, it was eye-opening for my dad. And it sounds like you guys did something similar to your practice. So let's hear the story. Let's hear what you guys did and
Yeah,
what
yeah.
you guys
So
found.
it was horrifying, actually. It was one of the more depressing points of my week. So um, I was in between patients, and I was we have a kitchen in our office, and I was just kind of sitting there, and Ryan walks up to me, and he's like, "Hey." He's like, "You want to see something completely awesome but super depressing?" I'm like, "Nope, I don't actually. I'm already stress eating." And he's like, "Okay, well, you should check this out because it's awesome, but also super sad and depressing." And I'm like, "Okay." So so he shows me this report. He did this last week. And basically what it is it's so one of the things that we offer our members is updated yearly pricing for zip code pricing, right? So
Great.
we just got our 2025 pricing, and he decided to run some, well, so he decided to run overhead, which we've done overhead for ages. Like, this is something that you have to, any business manager or office manager or consultant or whoever worth their salt should be running an overhead report, right? And
Yeah.
and I'm not talking about the P&L. P&L gives you like a nice snapshot, but I'm talking a actual overhead report of like, okay, what are the actual costs of doing business in my practice? But and then, we also do these reports on, price per procedure. But he decided to get ultra granular with this. And he says, okay, we're going to run it down to I'm going to include the cost of keeping the lights on,
Sure.
and taking the garbage out and stuff like that. So he took and got super granular with our overhead, and broke it down on a procedure code level. And so what we have now is we have this, and I keep looking to my left here because I'm looking at the report. And so what we have is we have,
Try not to throw up.
yeah, yeah, seriously though, like, and yeah, we'll get into why it's like
Yeah.
it is so depressing. But what I have is I have the 50 most common codes that we do in our practice, and then it's broken down by the 2025 pricing. So what we encourage all of our members and what anyone listening to the show is that you should be in the 80th to 90th percentile of pricing
Sure. Yeah.
for your zip code. And there's a lot of reasons for that we're not going to get into today. But there's definitely it would behoove you to do that. Never mind the effect it has on the industry and insurance, and when they audit and all that other stuff. It's going to benefit you to be in that 80th and 90th percentile of your zip code pricing. That's assuming you have your zip code pricing, you know what you should be. We've gone into offices, Jordan, that we've run the report and we look it up, and they're in like the 20th percentile of their zip
Jeez.
code. Yeah.
When the last time they had a price increase was like 1980?
Yeah. Basically, like
Goodness.
dad ran the office, and we haven't adjusted fees since dad ran it 10 years ago. I'm not kidding. Like, this is like,
Man, that's too bad. Yeah, because
and you
like,
encourage people to do it, and they're so scared to do it, and they're like, no, because we
yeah,
don't
why
want to
is
lose
that? Because
patients.
if I mean, I've been on all sides of dentistry for a long time now, and even my dad, I remember at the dental lab, he was so hesitant to increase his pricing. And I saw the same thing today when we talked to practices here at Boom Cloud. We'll look at when we were setting up their membership program, often a topic of UCR fees comes up. and they're like, oh yeah, we haven't raised our prices for years, right? And it makes me scratch my head every time I hear one of our team members bring that up, because I'm like, man, do practices not look at like their pricing and understand how important it is to maintain that over a year?
Yeah. I mean, I think in talking with people, our members and just friends that, doc friends,
Hmm.
the hesitance usually is fear-based.
Sure.
It's not
My
based
patients will
in,
leave me, all that
yeah,
type
we
of
don't want to
fear.
lose, we don't want to offend them.
The
Like,
funny thing
and
is, Dan, the patient doesn't know what your fees are.
they don't.
So if you increase it, I don't know if you recommend increasing every year,
Yep.
um, but the patients don't memorize your UCR fees.
No,
So
no.
they're not gonna know. They just don't know. And that's not it's when you make decisions off of fear, they're usually not the greatest.
Yeah. And the reality of it is usually when you do a percentile fee increase, the amounts are not big. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
it adds up and ends up being big for the practice, but for the
sure.
individual, it's not like
Yeah.
we're
Well,
talking
because
the cup
you
of coffee or something like that, the
yeah,
equivalent
you
of the cost of a cup of coffee
sure, because you
on
have
some stuff.
hundreds to thousands of patients paying a small increase, that adds up over time. So yeah, so get out of your head, docs, about fear-based pricing, and it's okay to increase your price. It's actually really healthy, and you need
Yeah.
to. So,
Yes.
all right, let's get into the details here of
Well,
what
yeah.
you guys realized.
So what we've got is, so we have this 2025 90th percentile pricing for our zip code at Wood River Dental, right? So here
Okay,
in Sun
nice.
Valley, this is what we have. Honestly, it's a little depressing sometimes to see what Idaho pricing is in of itself. We're like, oh,
Sure,
geez,
yeah.
because we run it against other states, and it's like, wow, this is anyway. That's a
Yeah,
personal problem. Um, and then what we do is we have Ryan has given us a comparison against Delta, what our contracted Delta reimbursement rate is.
okay,
Okay, so and then the difference. And so I'll just give you guys a quick. I'm going to do 3 or 4 examples from our stuff.
sure,
But this is an 0120. So this is periodic oral leave out. So this is an incredibly common code. Our diagnostic code, so a combination of limited, oral, comprehensive, and periodic. We did over 10,000 this year, and the year's not over yet. So in our office, we do a lot, right? And so the difference is 49% between what our pricing is and what Delta reimburses at. So once you plug that into our formula that Ryan has created now,
mm-hmm,
into our true overhead formula, which again, I get it, includes doc pay. So Dr. Hill and I are getting paid on this. So it's just the profitability for the practice, not doc profitability. Don't get that
sure,
confused. This is just the business aspect. Our profit with Delta patients is $3.
$3
$3 per procedure
for
per 0120.
you've done 10,000 plus.
Yeah.
And you got your $3.
It's $3. Three
Yeah.
bucks. We're,
Yeah.
we're raking it in on these
Yeah.
Delta
Every
patients.
couple of
So
patients, you can go get a McDonald's
yeah,
burger.
you can't though, actually, because it's the $5 meal deal. You need actually $2, but you got to do 2 of them.
Yeah, you got to do two of them to get your
Yeah,
McDonald's. You got to get lunch. Yeah.
yeah. Otherwise, you're just doing ramen that day. Yeah, so
Yeah, $3 profit. That's crazy for that,
it's
especially for that
insane.
magnitude of patients you're serving, the 10,000 plus um procedures that you did there. Holy
It,
smokes.
it's crazy. So, and then let's go into and keep in mind that of that 10,000, not all of them are Delta. So,
Oh, good point. Good point.
but the and same with any of these other metrics I'm going to give. But
Yeah, it's a
I'll give
cohort of a cohort, most
it
likely.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but what we can see into is what the profitability of the Delta versus the non-Delta patient is. To give you an idea, your profitability on that code should be based on what you charge, and where you should be in that 50 percentile
I was gonna
profitability.
say, yeah, for what like the is it is 0120 that the
Uh-huh.
code what's the what's the typical price for that before? Not profit, but just your price that the patient deals with.
That's a good question. I don't have the national average pricing in front of me. I only have our zip code in front of me. I'd have to
Got
pull
it.
that report.
Yeah.
But you know, so I can give the example of what our area is. It's $78 for our area.
Okay. So you take 3 divided by 78, and you can find that profit margin there. What's that, a 3.8% profit margin?
Yeah.
That procedure?
Yeah.
And you just recommended that we need to be around 50%-ish. I would
Yeah.
imagine it's depending to be healthy. Yeah, you need to have some type of profit so you can continue doing business
Yeah.
and but
And
that's
this is
wild.
and don't get confused with, and it gets a little convoluted, and I don't want to get too deep into this because
Sure, we
you
can
know
spend a lot of hours.
yeah, the percentages of the profitability per procedure versus total, you know.
The profit the practice profit
Yes,
is
yes.
way
So
different.
certain procedures are going to be higher percentile procedures than
Yeah.
others. Some are loss leaders, you know, so you have to check,
Yes.
you know, look into that. There's certain procedures that you'll have in your office that are simply loss leaders, and that's okay. As long as you make it up on the other end, which is the whole point of a loss leader, is to drive, you know, consumerism towards something that
Yep.
is profitable. So in this particular world, it's very depressing that with our insurance patients, we are only making $3 on that code. I can make it way sadder. So let's
Let's
your
go. Let's go
yeah,
down, baby.
get your Kleenex out because we're gonna make it worse. And again, Jordan, I mean, I keep saying this, but keep in mind that our office is highly optimized, and
Yeah.
so this is something that we are absolutely shackled by these contracted fees.
Yeah.
And you know, it's a frustrating thing that, and you know, I said it earlier, I'll say it again. Please look into those CE. You know, there is CE stuff out there that does teach how to, what's the word I want to use? Crack the insurance code,
Yeah.
and be able to get more reimbursement than just what their fees that they reimburse. They will
Yeah.
never pay you more. The insurance company will
No.
never pay you more. But there are ways that you can utilize the loopholes within the insurance contracts to charge more and get more for each
Yep.
procedure. But it's not my specialty. That's a super specialized CE course that I think there's a few of them that are out there. I know there's one in Utah specifically, but if someone wants to dig into that, they can message me. I can give them more information.
Yeah, there's a lot of people in Utah that do that type of work. It's
Usually
great.
involves an attorney, you know, somewhere in as a
Yeah,
lawyer.
typically.
Yeah. But I'm gonna just show a resin two surface posterior. Okay, so
Okay.
this is a D2392, and
Okay.
the difference between Delta and our 2025 our fee is 49%.
So another
Excuse me,
49%.
52%. I gave you the wrong number.
52%. Okay.
52%. All right. So we lose $39 on every single posterior two surface filling that we do. The business loses.
So posterior. Okay.
Yeah. But it's about the same. Some are worse.
30,
It's if you go to the front of the mouth, it's worse. We have a $90 loss on one of them. So
$39 loss. And then and I know this is your total practice number. How many posterior fillings did you guys do?
So our total, you know, looking at this report, between Jared and I, just on direct restorations, I would have to pull a more granular report than I have just on my hip here. But you know, if you take just all the fillings that we've done this last year, it's around 1,500. So you know, and you figure that some are $90 loss, some are the lowest loss we have on this is actually the $39 one, believe it or not.
No.
Yeah. So
and this is with Delta. This is not with
this is with Delta. Yeah. Obviously
okay.
we're profitable on our
your other
PPO
sure, yeah.
patients. Yeah.
Yeah.
So but
Jeez.
I mean, that was really depressing when we looked at that and go, holy crow, like this is something that is damaging to business. And again, if it's happening to us, I guarantee it's happening to other offices.
Well, and you guys
Yeah,
run a tight ship over there. I would imagine practices that haven't looked at, like your comment of other practices that haven't increased their fees in years, it's probably way worse. And you guys are keeping up
exactly.
with it, which is insane to me. The fact that you
And
guys are
again,
keeping up with it, it's like, whoa, holy smokes.
exactly. And again, we utilize techniques and things to mitigate that loss, but
Sure.
some offices just take it. They just take it right to the teeth. They don't have any systems in place. There's nothing that they're doing to mitigate it. They just take it right to the mouth. Like just
Jeez.
no pun intended, or maybe it was, who knows?
Maybe it was. Yeah, maybe it was a pun that was intended.
Yeah, it was very punny.
It was very funny.
Yeah, but I mean, so I mean, this is something that, again, if they don't know, if you don't know in your office what your cost per procedure
Yeah.
based on what insurance you're taking, what your profit or loss is on that, or your margins are.
Yeah.
And let's say,
It's
let's
your
say
product,
that
your margins per procedure. It would be because that is
exactly,
obviously collectively it scales up and then you get your profit margin as a company. But
exactly.
it is good to look at it profit per procedure so you understand the nuances of all your procedures and how it adds up. Here's a question for you. Like, how do you guys manage this? Is there software that you're using to look at all your procedures, or are you just doing it through Excel?
Well, we, again, I don't mean to brag, but we have a magician, and
Yes.
having a
It's nice to have
magician.
somebody who can do like CFO
Yeah,
functions
yeah.
of the practice.
It's really, really nice to have a magician in your back pocket. As your partner,
Yeah.
I have two magicians, and so I'm like the lackey. I'm just the
Whatever.
I'm just this guy that's there. So I'm the face. That's what it is.
You're the pretty face. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So
funny.
so Ryan, Ryan, this is what he does all day, every day,
He's
and
looking at numbers.
he just knows how to generate these things, and he's done so much of it for so long.
Yeah.
Again, his background was in retail, and
Hmm.
retail, this is what they do, and
They
so
look at everything with a fine tooth comb.
yep, every
It's
item that
great.
they have on a shelf, they need to understand, and the pricing on that changes daily. He said I
Mm,
had to do this daily because the market in retail is volatile, and so.
sure.
And we don't do anything close to it. If you think about it, though, it's the similarities are shocking between an item, whether it's an item on a shelf or an item that you is just a service that you offer. It's still an itemized line of a line item that you can look at and dissect and say, is that profitable? Is it not profitable? But
Yeah,
you have to know what your overhead is. You have to know what your cost of business is. And if you
sure.
don't, you could just be, this is what happens a lot, Jordan, is we see, and I'm sure you've watched this yourself, is as long as there's money coming into the account, and as long as there's
Cash
no
balance management.
sting,
Yeah.
yeah, as long as there's no sting, ignorance is bliss.
Yeah.
And there's so many times where it's like, what, money's coming in. I don't really know where it's coming from. I just know it's
Jeez.
coming in, and my bills are getting met, and I like my salary, therefore status quo is okay.
Hmm.
I guarantee you who doesn't do that is corporate or DSOs or
No,
anybody
no.
that,
Most of the time they have a finance person within, like if it's a multi-location DSO, they have finance people that are looking at this, just like what Ryan is doing with you guys, which I think it's a big issue in the industry with single locations, even into the merging multi-location practice, like dentist owned multi-locations. There's a huge lack of financial awareness in what you just discovered within your guys' practice, from what I've seen, which sucks because you can really optimize your practice when you know this data. And yes, it may be depressing or look like a big issue, but issues can be solved.
Mhm.
So let's talk about that. How are you thinking about solving this and some of these procedures within your practice this next year?
Yeah. So again, there's a couple ways to go about it,
Hmm.
and uh, as I referred to earlier, there are programs that are available if someone wants to, go down that avenue. They're not horribly expensive, but they're not cheap either to go and do these, on-site or off-site CE type training. That they give you the verbiage, they give you the how to, when you take one of these things, you sign a non-disclosure, so it's not something that we can just be chatting about
Sure. Yeah.
willy-nilly here. But the bottom line is that they show you how to unlock the loopholes within the insurance industry. There are loopholes that are there.
Yeah. There's a
There's
bunch.
verbiage in your contracts when you sign on as as a provider with an insurance company. There's specific verbiage that they are very, very, very good and very careful about what verbiage goes into that contract. Most of us are too ignorant to really know
Well,
what a
that's
lot
what
of
they
it
do every
means.
day is
And that's
look
what they
at
do every
like
day.
all insurance companies do. They look at paper, they sell paper, and that paper has
Yep.
legal binding aspects to it. That's all they sell, right? So if you think about
Yep.
that, that is their product, and they're looking at that every day with a fine tooth comb, right?
Uh-huh.
Legal language and all that fun stuff. So it can get pretty wild if you're not
It can, yeah. But that's why these CE courses are so good, is that, and why you sign a non-disclosure is that, because what they teach you
it's
is
impactful.
it
What
is, and
can you
it's hard to
share
come
who
by.
can you share the company that does this type of CE?
We'll put it in the link. We
Okay.
can but um again, I have to tiptoe around. There's a lot of tiptoeing around
Sure.
that stuff.
Yeah.
The other thing that can be done, and of course this is right up your alley, is that we really believe in a patient benefit plan, or a patient membership program, or whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
where now you have a passive income coming in, and that helps to mitigate a lot of what you get beat up on
And
the
control over your
insurance.
pricing. Yeah, because
Yeah,
you could charge be in the 80 to 90th percentile and still charge it and not have to worry about. I mean, you'll have most practices will do some type of discount to the membership patients, but at least you control it. And if you realize that there's certain procedures that you're losing money on, you'd be like, well, let's take these procedures out of the membership plan or give a different discount to those. We have practices that do that all the time. Like, well, we don't want to put our implants into the 20% discount. We want to create another discount for just
right.
implants or whatever it may be, right? Depending
Yeah, or
on
if it's
your
whether
numbers.
it's a perio program, or
Yeah.
whether it's like whatever it is. Yeah, and you can definitely, but you need to know, again, you have to get granular and be able to look at it and say, okay, where can we mitigate costs with our patient benefit plan or with our patient membership program?
Yeah.
Where do we do that? Where do we dissect it? And that becomes a very easy way to continue to get a passive revenue stream coming into your practice that mitigates a lot of the hit that we take. In our Monday morning
Sure.
meeting, we actually show, we go through the metrics that we have is, we break down our write-offs from
Okay.
insurance write-off, and then like pro bono work that we do, like charitable work that we do.
Sure.
And then, any other, we have kind of a miscellaneous write-off because there's some stuff that gets, stuck in some funny spots. And then we build back in the revenue from our patient benefit plan to show how it mitigates those write-offs. And
Mm.
so it shows, and then it gives us an actual total write-off amount. Sometimes it's negative, sometimes it's positive, depending on the week and we were on when membership payments hit and all that other stuff. But it's nice to be able to see, oh, okay, we are mitigating a lot of this loss. So, and really, I think the other thing is that if someone is absolutely convinced that they cannot get rid of insurance, that they are like, there's no way I'm doing it. It scares me to death. I think I'll lose all my patient, whatever.
Especially like Delta, trying to get rid of Delta. That's the scariest one for most practices.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And depending on where you live, there's some other huge ones, and it's like,
Sure.
but to get rid of those, some people are like, I'm just not going to do it. Then you have to be able to break down and look at like, okay, based on what insurance companies you're taking, how much of your business does that insurance company make up? And then you have to
Yep.
say, is probably a loss leader on a lot of stuff. And so you have to look at it and say, okay, where am I making up that money? Because let's say patient A just comes in for, they have good hygiene, they do everything right. They come in and they don't cost you a lot, let's just say,
Sure.
but they don't bring you a lot either.
They're
So you
kind
have
of,
to look at that and
yeah,
say, okay,
break even.
what is coming from that type of patient versus the patient that is maxed out every year, that just is, their kids don't brush, and they bring their
Sure.
kids in, first of all. So they bring their 5 kids in. So that's adding to it. There's a lot of components here. And this is why we say you got to get granular on this and say, okay, well, is that a good loss leader? Is that mom?
Sounds like discovering your ideal patient profile is
It's
what I hear.
exactly right. Yeah, we're back there
Once
again.
again, we're talking
We've
about that.
circled back to the ideal patient profile.
It's so important.
It really is. And so, you have to look at it and say, how much of a loss leader is insurance?
Yeah.
Am I really taking a bath, or am I doing okay? And there's some states that do better than others, and so it just
Sure.
depends where you're at and the area, zip code you live in. And, you're going to want to be able to look at that. So, and then, the other thing that, and this is this is the penultimate way, is get rid of insurance.
Yeah.
Like,
So
don't
reduce
sign on the
dependence.
contract.
Yep. Go out of network, which also can be scary. Years ago, back to what you said about membership plans, when you go down a network, I remember talking to a dentist in Texas. He was so terrified because I was speaking here in Utah with Gary Takis about reducing dependence on PPOs. And this doctor was terrified of dropping insurance. And he's like, I don't want to drop my insurance because I feel like I'm gonna lose everything, right? And I remember sitting down with him and be like, hey, you don't have to drop insurance like right away, like a light switch. Like that's kind of insane. If it's a strategy, right? And I said, why don't you start with building a membership program and adding, a cohort of your patients onto this plan and building that recurring revenue up from your membership plan that gives you the cash flow and the confidence to then start reducing little by little the lowest paying plans or whatever, like, the smallest cohort of plans that aren't going to be as impactful if patients churn out, right? And sure enough, that's what he did. And over time, he was able to reduce a quite significant amount of his PPO contracts because he became way more confident from a cash flow perspective because he was able to get patients on his membership plan. So that's why I like it from a going out of network strategy. For most practices, it gives you confidence and peace of mind. It makes you sleep better at night. I like cash flow. That's what it does.
Cash flow is
Good
nice.
cash flow. Yeah.
Yeah, positive cash flow.
Positive cash flow. Yes,
Yeah,
yes. Because
negative
there's
cash.
such
Honestly, sometimes negative cash flow makes me feel really good too, depending on what I'm getting with it. But
depending. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Other ways is you can, instead of like ripping out the insurance, you could renegotiate your insurance contracts. Um,
absolutely.
that's one thing which can be hard if you're a single location. I know a lot of multi-location doctors that own multi-locations, they have a little bit more leverage when it comes to negotiating with their insurance contracts, but that's a simple way to, not simple. It's not simple.
Well, it can be
Yeah,
simple though. Like there are
sure.
like Best for Dentistry, for example, they have an entire team that's dedicated to renegotiate. So if you sign on as a Best for Dentistry member, one of the things that they offer, and there's other groups that do this too, is that they
Yeah.
offer free negotiation,
Oh,
for
for the
fee
group.
schedules. Yeah, and so and
That's cool.
GPOs are great that way.
Yeah.
GPOs have a lot more leverage to be able to go in and do that kind of stuff. But and that goes full circle too, Jordan, back to what we were talking about making sure you're in that 80th and 90th fee
Uh-huh.
percentile, because as insurance do audits, if, and again, I've said this, I've lost count how many times I've said this. Do not set your fees to reimbursement rates ever, 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 because all you're doing is crippling your practice, and you're crippling everybody else, all the other
Yeah.
people that are in your
In your zip
area.
code. Yeah.
Oh,
Well, because now
it's
the
the
insurance
worst thing.
company is going to look at that and be like, oh, that's the standard for that area. And they're going to lower everything from
They
there.
lower it. That's
Yeah.
why, and it's one of the big reasons why Delta fees, I'm just going to pick on Delta, but
Sure.
why Delta fees have actually gone down, not up, in the last 10 years.
Because practice owners are not they're not in the 80th to 90th percentile. They're picking a lower percentage.
Well, yeah, and then you have
Mm,
ignorant or and this is harsh to say, but it is what it is. You have
yeah.
either ignorant or lazy office managers who do not want to have to go and write stuff off, take
Mm.
the 5 minutes that it
Sounds
takes
like
to
a
write stuff off.
sounds like a great interview question. When you're interviewing a office manager, ask
Yeah,
them about this.
how do you feel about, yeah, where should fees be set? Yeah, but that really is a conversation.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be surprised if there's owners that were to sit down with their office managers and say, hey, can you show me like what's the 90th percentile for our area? They won't know.
They
They
won't
won't
know.
know.
They probably won't even know where to find it. There's a lot of
E-
resources out there.
Exactly. And so what they do is they base fees off of what the contract rates are with the insurance companies.
Jeez. Okay. Well, and then often, if they're not a practice owner, they think, I have this phrase that I say with my team, they think with their own wallet. And what I mean by that is they don't own a business and you're asking them to do a business function and they make a decision for the business thinking with their own wallet, meaning they're not a business owner. They don't deal with the costs and the revenue amounts that
Yep.
the practice owners do. And yet they're empowered in most offices to make really strategic business decisions, but they're thinking with their own wallet, right? Their own scope of financial awareness,
Totally.
which is, if you think about that, Dan, that's really dangerous.
Oh,
You
it's
know,
not
if
good.
if if I were to go to any one of my employees here and be like, "Hey, can you make a business decision financially for me today?" and they don't know the scope of my business and the nuances of how to run my company and look at finances, they're going to make a limited decision. And it's not because they're awesome people. They just it's their experience that I'm talking about. They're just not experienced to make a decision because they're going to think with their own wallet. So
Yep.
that's something that we need to be mindful as practice owners and business owners, that our staff may not be able they may not be the ones to make those types of decisions when it comes to fees and all that fun stuff we're talking today.
Yep.
So wild,
Yeah, I
awesome.
mean, and I said I was gonna give another example. The one that I really
Oh
want to
yeah,
hit. This one is for all on, the all on docs are becoming very prevalent, and
yeah,
it can be very, very profitable. And I just think it's one of the coolest services that we can offer nowadays is to take someone that's a dentalist and, really change their life. And
we did a ton of those when I was at the dental lab. A
it's
lot. They
so
were one of our,
impactful.
yeah, they're great.
It's incredible. But for those docs that are doing that, um, where the fee is pretty high,
Yeah,
and you can see it, upward depending on your area, it's upward just per arch, you're getting into now, sometimes 5 digits,
oh
sometimes
yeah,
easy, inexpensive on your overhead. Never mind the fee that's getting charged out to the patient. And so just depending on how many, implants you're putting in and the quality of the prosthesis and all this other stuff,
sure.
it can get very expensive. Well, insurance companies don't care how
No,
good of quality you're using, or they don't give a
they
rip of the
don't.
components and any of that stuff or what lab you're using. So that's one of the biggest, like, that you can take a horrid bath on something like that where the difference can be shocking. It can be upward of 60%. And you can end up actually losing money depending on how many visits it takes, because anyone that's
Sure.
ever done
And
an all
lab fees and all that.
yep, anybody that's ever my all on docs out there, they know, like, it's not always, it's gotten 1,000 times easier in the last, what, 6 7 years with digital
I
workflow,
was going to say with all the digital technology, but oh,
but it can
absolutely.
still be a lot of visits, and it ties you up, and
Yep.
it ties you personally up, either in post-operative care or, just follow-up care. So there needs to be that's one of the ones that's really dangerous, because the number looks so appealing and we know it can be incredibly profitable. But if it's an insurance one and your
Mm.
insurance has you contracted at certain rates for that, beware and be mindful of that, because you can take a big hit and if you're doing a lot of those, you really need to watch what your profits are, because that's one of the bigger ones that gets overlooked because it's so sexy and the number's so big to
It
start
really
with.
is. Yeah. Yeah.
So just a heads up on that one.
Well, yeah, anything with anything on a PPO contract, we should be looking at because of the massive discounts that they force upon practices. Yeah, just because the revenue potential is there doesn't mean it's a good revenue opportunity with a PPO contract, right? There are such thing as
Exactly.
bad revenue. And
Yeah.
it's funny, I say this all the time, and my salespeople always they find that sentence confusing. Like, wait, there's such thing as bad revenue? Yeah, it's called too much cost, not enough to cover it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's bad revenue, dude. And the same thing can happen in dentistry with the amount of procedures. I don't know how many procedures does a practice do. It's I know you said you
Oh,
looked at the 50 to 100 range, but there's
so
so much.
yeah, we do so total procedures in our office, and keep in mind, we were a 3 doc practice at the beginning of the year. We one of our associates moved on and bought a practice. We're super proud of him.
Oh, good for him.
Yeah, but just with the two of us, more or less the two of us, we do about 22,000 procedures a year.
Wow.
So yeah, and
It's a lot to manage. That's a lot to keep track of, a lot to manage, a lot to understand.
yeah, and
So I
that's
bet
the
you're so grateful for Ryan.
yeah. Well, and you bring up a good point, and that's that. You see this boom right now in coaching or whatever you want to call it.
Mhm.
Which is not dissimilar to at Elevation Association, we're facilitators.
Sure.
And businesses like EA, um, this is becoming extremely popular because of the services that are offered and how convoluted and confusing running a business is becoming. But if people are like me, I'm not willing to give up my autonomy. For
Yeah.
me, being a practice owner is paramount, and I'll take the headaches to have that
I'm
autonomy
the
and
same
have that
way. Yeah.
freedom.
I'm the
And
same
so
way.
I think there's still a lot of docs out there that feel the same way, but we also have limited bandwidth. And so getting this kind of stuff, they're like, oh my gosh, it's just one more thing. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's another thing. And so, we really, obviously, I mean, we're a bit biased being a business owner in this world, but go and get help. Like, it should be part of
Yeah.
your overhead. Like, you should include that the same way you would an attorney, the same way you would an accountant.
Yep.
Like, it's if you want to make life more enjoyable and easier, like, plug that into your overhead and make it part of your cost of doing business, because it will take so much stress off of your office manager or stress off of you. It's worth it. And again, I'm not saying like they have to run and go sign up with EA. Find a good fit for you. Find
Sure.
somebody that has the same that appreciates your ethos and your schema of business, and and plug in and plug them in. And and then the other thing is it should be effective, just like a good attorney or a good accountant. You should see some type of result, whether it's monetary or whether it's time, whether it's a decrease in stress, whatever. But that's why we're boom cloud clients, is that you could easily, well, not easily, you could through a lot of headache, you could create something similar to boom cloud. And the reason I slipped and said easy is because the allure is easy. It's like, oh
Sure.
well,
Yeah.
yeah, how hard can it be? Well, it's not. It's not easy. There's a reason boom cloud exists, right? And so, but for us, that's part of our overhead, because it decreases our stress. It's a
Yeah.
beautiful format to make life easier. I'm not adding a job to somebody else in the office. It's actually taking away from their stress load and workload. So
Sure.
these types of things, like, you got to work smarter, not harder,
Yeah.
and that you've got to plug that in when we're talking overhead. Like, you've got to look at, okay, what's it worth to me to have less stress, but also, like, how does it hitting the bottom line? Like, how's it affecting the bottom line? If you don't have a patient benefit plan, if you're not having, recurring revenue, that's affecting your bottom line. You need to
Oh,
have that
yeah.
in your office. Things like
Big
that are
time.
important.
Yeah, and to your point with like having a coach, or I like how you guys call yourselves facilitators. I think that's kind
Mm-hmm.
of cool. Um, part of like our budget here at BoomCloud, I have a coach, right? I actually have a mastermind that I attend 2 times a month of other software as a service founders and CEOs where we get together, we have a coach and we help each other with our business, look at numbers, everything that you discussed on this podcast. We talk, but in our industry, right? In our business, and we help each other. And it's been the best thing for me as a business owner and a SaaS founder. The same thing for practice owners on what you guys are doing in coaching and facilitating. I like that one. That's a cool word.
It's if anyone
So
wants to know why we don't call ourselves
yeah,
coaches,
I'm actually curious. Yeah.
well, it's a different podcast. We'll have to do that
We'll
one.
do that
Yeah.
podcast of coaches, consultants, and
Yeah.
facilitators.
Uh-huh.
No, I love it. But every practice that I have ever worked with here at BoomCloud, when they have a coach, a consultant, somebody helping them optimize their business, they run amazingly better than practices that don't. It's obvious, but sometimes not obvious when you're in the trenches as a practice owner.
Yeah.
So Dan, what's your guys' website for Elevation Association so people can, pick your brain, and if people are like, if practice owners are like, oh my gosh, I have no idea on my cost per procedure or anything we discussed today, how do they reach out to you and learn more about what you guys are
Yeah,
doing?
just go to elevationassociation.com. You can also reach us at elevationassociation@gmail.com.
Okay,
And this is what we love to do. We talk to docs, every week we talk to docs about
great.
whatever it is that the pain point is, or the success point, or whatever. Like, we just like talking about this stuff. You don't have to be a member to talk to us. like like I
It's cool.
I will sit down and chat. Like, if I've been given any gifts in this life, it is the gift of gab. So
Me too, dude.
yeah,
Here, I
yeah,
go on forever.
yeah. Whether that's a strength or maybe it's not a gift, I don't know. Who is gifting?
Yeah.
I don't know. But we really enjoy talking, dentistry and, life. We like talking about, what kind of legacy are we going to leave? This is stuff that's important to us. So we talk everything from family to,
So good.
business decisions to retirement, all of it. Like, this stuff, and we're in the trenches, so reach out. Like, if it's a pain point for you, it's probably been a pain point for us. So
Most
or
likely.
yeah, or we know someone that has, had that same pain point, so yeah, if
Love it.
anyone ever has questions, please reach out. We love to talk about it.
Yeah, you can find the website and contact information in our show notes. Same thing, if you're wanting to create a membership program and scale that, go to boomcloudapps.com and schedule a demo and see how our software can impact your practice. So Dan, with that said, dude, awesome episode. To all our listeners, we hope you guys have a rocking day.